This is my first interview. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Ashley. On my channel, Ashley in Africa, I talk about my experience moving and doing business and also living on the continent of Africa. But on this episode, I'm going to be sharing the platform and inviting another special guest, Marissa, today to talk about her experience as she prepares for her journey to move to South Africa. So if you're not new, welcome back. And if you're new, welcome and subscribe to the channel if this sounds interesting to you. Hi, Marissa.
Hi, Ashley.
I'm so excited for this.
Me too. Me too.
Hey, so in over a year, I haven't really gotten to do interviews on my channel, and I've wanted to. It's just been like really hard to do, but we have been like having this growing relationship since you reached out to me and like started your journey, at least from that point of inflection where we connected, and you honored us in this space with offering to share your story, and I'm so happy that you are willing to do that. So thank you for joining us in advance. And if you would tell us a little bit about your journey and what's going on. Let us know where you're currently at, and where you are planning to go.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, Ashley, it's so good to see you. And thank you for just creating this space and for inviting me just wholeheartedly into it. It's just been a deep honor and a privilege to be able to have been doing life with you, even from different parts of the world
Yeah.
over the past, close to the year mark. Yeah. So I just want to thank you first and foremost.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, everything you've created with Ashley in Africa. I mean, I just want to hype you up first before I even get started because I wouldn't be at this point. You've been one of those people that have been kind of a forerunner in my own experience. So I just want to give you credit where credit is due. So thank you for that, first and foremost.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Marissa. Don't get me out here.
But so to your question, where am
Yeah.
I? Where am I on my journey? Well, I'm based in the U.S., the East Coast, the Washington D.C. Suburbs. So I'm always on East Coast time, and I am basically at the point where I'm getting ready to transition to relocate from the U.S. after living here for a good chunk of my life, about 30 years, to head to South Africa, Cape Town to be more specific. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Oh, that's so exciting. And yeah, you've been working on this for a while. So, do you want to talk a bit about your experience? Because I know you said you've been living in the US for 30 years, but do you want to talk a little bit about what your experience has been like? I think, with that amount of time spent in the US, and then what was your decision making and when did that start, when you started thinking about potentially moving out of the US?
Wow. I mean, how do I summarize 30 years? But um, you know, it's been complex, right? I can't say one way or the other, but it's been complicated. It's been times where I have felt like I was living the American dream of, feeling safe and secure and, pursuing my educational and career goals. And then there were times where I felt like I was getting up against the American rub, the American tension. So it's been in terms of just what setbacks might look like in the context of where you're living, of just the reality of being an immigrant from West Africa, being a woman of African descent. All of those complexities have impacted my experiences here,
Yeah.
positively as well as, you know, more so on the challenging side. So it's been a mix, um,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
I think what got me to this point was I always knew that I wanted to return to the continent. That was just something I knew as a child, as very young, when I came to the US, but I was old enough to remember, old enough to speak my language and still do, um, even though it's with an American accent, but hey. Um, and I just always knew that that time would come. And I
Hmm.
think what really made it clear that that time was now, um, I think with just several factors. I think it was becoming a mother in the US and realizing it's not so easy being a mom in America and what is required of you as a mother. It really made me miss and long for uh, that communal aspect of life on the continent. It really made me long for being seen and affirmed in that way and being supported, especially as a mother, in ways that I just could not replicate as hard as I tried, because I'm somebody who values community a lot. I'm always part of something. So I'm always going to make an effort to connect and stay engaged with people and make sure that we are serving each other. And so as much as I really tried to replicate those things from home, the reality is this is a different space, and there
Hmm.
are demands on you to be in America and to make life in America work as a mother. And the reality was I said, I hit a wall and said, this is enough. It's time for more. And I also wanted my daughter to have that experience, because then now it would mean that she would not have the African childhood I had, or it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly the one I have, since, I'm going to a different country, but still having that experience of what it is like to be a child, and a child on the continent. So it was that wake up call of becoming a mother in America that made me say, girl, I think your time is up.
Wow. Yeah, you said so much. And I think you are. I mean, I can definitely, we talked about how you value community, but you don't just value it, you really show up in that way and are intentional about maintaining relationships. And it can be a value of yours. I think family is a value of mine now that I've learned the importance of it, but it wasn't a value growing up because it wasn't something that I saw. I just knew it was important once I said it, but I didn't realize how important it was until I had my daughter. And so how beautiful of a yearning, like you really had a yearning based on what you had experienced as a child. And I can relate only in the yearning of like, there has to be better than this. Like, I didn't know that there was better outside of the articles that I would read. I mean, there was no data really around motherhood in Africa. It was like all of these other, motherhood is easier in Europe and all these other places because of social systems. But there was never a conversation around motherhood and the community aspect of motherhood and sisterhood and fatherhood, like it is prevalent in the continent, all over the continent. It looks different country by country, kind of like just in the way that it's directed. Like for example, Tanzania, like they call you mama, whatever your baby's name is. So people call me Mama Penelope, or Zanaya's friends will call me Mama Zanaya, but you're typically called mama of your youngest child by the teachers, by the elders, by the community. Like they don't even know your name.
Mhm.
And I think it's so interesting now when I hear conversations about, of you know, I call us modern women in America, where it's like being just a mother is like this problem, or it's like you're unfulfilled, where in reality motherhood is the highest esteem
Mm,
in the continent of Africa. Thus, Africa being Mama Africa, it is the highest esteem.
mm.
Um, so it's so heartwarming that you said that was really an inflection point, because that gift to our babies is really, you know, what we share, and also ourselves, right? To be in a community where we can be supported, where we can be loved, cherished, valued in that, in that role. So yeah, that's beautiful. I think for a lot of mothers that watch the content or have said, I want to do this too, it seems so hard, or I couldn't imagine doing it, or I would love to do it, but I'm going to wait until they get older.
Mm.
What do you think about that? Like,
Yes, I've heard that often myself. Oh, I'll wait, and it's like, no, don't wait. Children, are a sponge when they're younger. It's now is the time. This is the perfect time. When they're older, they're going to be set in their ways. I mean, I work with children, especially older children, so I know it's a different stage as opposed to, my younger child. So it's this is the time they can learn other languages easier. They're open, and it just shapes them, and they become global citizens and globally minded, while understanding what it's like to be in community and connection on a local one-to-one level. So don't it's a gift that you get to give them now, and you set them up to be those types of individuals. So I would say don't wait.
ditto, ashe, sawa.
Yes.
Sawa, sawa. I totally agree. What about maybe touching to some of the fears, right? Because I know that you've heard your share. I shared on this channel about women and men, people who have an interest in moving abroad. Be very intentional and critical of those that you share your journey with, because propaganda is a vertical of white supremacy, right? And its job is to condition your mind to thinking that your current state, however chaotic, however unsafe, however uncomfortable it may feel, is the best situation you could be in. And so, one of the things that I shared that I've experienced is just extreme pushback. Why would you go to Africa? What's in Africa? This is gonna happen to you, and this is gonna happen to your daughters, and they don't even like us over there. What is what was that experience like for you, when you started to share your interest and your plans to migrate to South Africa?
Well, I have been very familiar with the just the propaganda machine, and how much it's impacted people of African descent, no matter where we find ourselves. And so um, I just always remember that I was always very pro African growing up. I'd be that person dressed up in um, an outfit from Sierra Leone, and just go to school and be like, you know what, y'all keep asking me about where I'm from, I'm going to tell you. And then I would arrange with a teacher and be like, listen, let's block out like 20 minutes, and then I can do a presentation, bring food, and we can talk. And so that was my energy. And I was very, there weren't a lot of people that looked like me where I was growing up. So I really had to do the work, because it's not like I was growing up on the East Coast where there are people from just those diverse cultures. No, 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 no. It wasn't that kind of party. Yes, there were people from other cultures, but they didn't represent the African diaspora or people of African descent even as much. So there'd be like a handful of us in an entire school.
Mhm.
So I was very familiar very early because I came with my accent, and people would be like, "Oh, where are you from?" And get all the crazy questions of like, did you live in a hut? What did you eat? Are you hungry? Just so I got it very early on.
Mhm.
So I knew how Americans perceived the continent. And so it was something I really had to just protect my plans. And I really only told a handful of people in the beginning. And those were people that I could trust. And I knew those were people that supported me and also had, a global perspective, whether it was one that was aware of Africa in the same way that I was, but, they were well traveled. They understood that the propaganda in the US that were being served isn't necessarily true because they've also experienced other parts of the world and have fallen in love with other cultures. So I trusted my story and my plans to those people. And anybody outside of that space didn't really hear about it.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
know
because
that's
I
right.
just had to protect it.
I know that's right. What about your family?
That's a mixed bag.
Mhm.
I have family all over the world. So we're kind of scattered. Some of us
Okay.
are based in the islands. Some of us are based in the UK. Some of us are based in California. And of course, the headquarters, Sierra Leone. um, so it's a mixed bag, and even with family, there are people that have various feelings. There are some who are very, man, I wish I could return and retire and spend my days and feel that longing, but have also accepted that um, this is where they should be. They should be in the US for whatever reasons. They have their own reasons. And then there are those that are like, what's in Africa? What's there? And just have, absorbed the propaganda, absorbed the colonialism, really, because these are Africans that were born and raised, in on the continent and then moved to the US as adults, and have kind of just said, what are we going to do? So it's a mix. And so again, even within family, I also had to make sure that I protected my plans.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it can be pretty much a bit of a mixed bag for
Yes.
sure. And I think I love, the fact that you're honoring yourself and were protective of that experience and of that journey. I think at one point before, I mean, I was told, right? I did get advice from a really good friend of mine who was like a sister today who told me, don't tell anybody. And I did towards the end, but I noticed like, the majority were supportive, but that's kind of mixed bag of such, and I think the longer that I've been here, there's people that are either like coming closer to like, wow, tell me more, like what's going on there, and then other people that are just like, no. Yeah. Like, so it's been interesting to just personally go through that as well. So I think I have also heard the opposite of people that really kind of get in this space of trying to convince people that it's not true and it's not this and you should come. And it can be somewhat heartbreaking for people, especially for women who have a very intentional interest in just raising their children in a safer environment. Um, I was asked from a person that I did an interview, and I wrote down, what my topics are, like what my main reasons were, because I wanted to stay on focus. But it was, why did I move? Because of gun violence in America, because of quality of life, because of police brutality, because of affordability of childcare, um, and the family centered culture. But the first thing was gun violence. That was really, for me, like the moment. So I had my daughter, um, but that was just a big thing. And it's interesting because it seems to be kind of something that has just been, I mean, it's just been accepted. Like, this is the norm now. And it's so heartbreaking to watch, because it's like when things happen, people, go into their places of, whatever type of mental stillness or community gathering. But I think we also, the memes float, the tweet screenshots float for 24 to 48 hours, and then people just kind of go out about their day. But it has become an increasing issue. And women are actively taking heed. And so I think I said this a year ago, and I got some pushback, and they were like, no, that's, it's not this movement. Because I was like, this is a movement. Like, this is happening. Mothers are saying, no way, like, not my babies. The others, because that's, y'all want to stay there. Okay, that's your place. You can go ahead, strap up, do what you have to do. But for, I can see the height and the increase in Black mothers that are making, this decision. What are you most excited about when you make your voyage?
Wow. I know. I mean, it's the word excitement. I mean, doesn't even begin to encapsulate what I will really be feeling or what I'm really looking forward to. But I think to be able to really just experience relief. There is, like you mentioned with your list of reasons, there's always that layer of sense of I have to be alert, I have to be on, and I have to make sure everything is protected. I have to make sure I don't miss a beat. And it's not to say that, I'm going to this utopia where, there's no crime or whatnot. Everywhere in the world has their own challenges that they have to deal with. So let me just make that disclaimer. But I am aware of the American experience, and I'm also aware of the African experience. Not to say that I can speak about every country, but just, just doing my homework as well as lived and experience. But I say all that to say one of the big things I'm really looking forward to is just that relief of not being on edge, because there's just an edge that you have to, that you just carry, and a lot of times we don't realize that we're carrying it until we go to spaces and we're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Okay. And I experience those things when I travel out and I'm there on a vacation and things of that nature. So I'm familiar with what it feels like to not have that tension that I carry in my day-to-day world here. And have my daughter experience me without that. And
Mm-hmm.
because she is also a very, very empathetic child and very aware of, how mommy is doing and her environment. So she does pick up on energy and things of that nature. And so that's the like really like primary thing before I even get to all the things is that being able to just breathe a sigh of relief. I don't have to put on and
Mm-hmm.
going to work after, the world has consumed or, a live, ending of a man's life, a Black man's life, for consumption, for public consumption. I don't have to walk into a classroom or into a meeting and pretend I'm okay, and muster up the good fight to go another day, another week, another moment. So that's, because in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that primary level, that sense of safety and security, on that primary level, I am looking forward to being like, Marissa, it's okay. It's going to be okay.
Yes, I always talk about the epitome of Maslow's needs and I forgot that, safety and security. But yeah, it took that to even really be looking at the self-actualization piece, because you must sit there. And I would think it was a bit disconnected that is literally not even being fulfilled somehow. And people are able to kind of function. So, and it's really hard, especially in the time where we are now. It's been this way, I think, for a while, but when these moments happen, and I think our most recent moment, there's just so many, right? Like, I can't even list all of them because there's always so many.
It's so depressing.
Yeah, but that's a beautiful thing. I know you're also a member of the Africa Investors Academy. And in one of our last meetings, one of our members talked about how her biggest, she was a senior, in a senior management role at a very huge company, and was talking about how the majority of her budget and time went to self-care. Because like the majority of her time and budget. And she has since traveled and done extended discovery trips in South Africa. And she said, self-care is still a big part of her lifestyle, but it is no longer the biggest part of her budget or the biggest amount of time that she's spending in her day. And even, her ability to process stress or emotions, or the way in which her body actually does that, feels so much different. Only after a few months of being removed from that space. And it was kind of this tone that was set in the beginning of the meeting for, with her having recently made that move, with you being en route to making that. And then some people that are like, they don't have their date yet. But it was an encouragement, a moment. And we also, extend protection, and know that in this season, and as we're planning a voyage and preparing, that, and we'll affirm it right now, you will continue to be covered and protected. You and your daughter will continue to be covered and protected in this journey. And, we'll end up, feeling ultimately a sense of peace and relief immediately, as a gift of your dedication, your hard work, and your obedience, and trusting yourself, which is what so many of us forget how to do, So if there's one thing that you could tell a woman who, is in your shoes or wants to be in your shoes, right? Has a desire, not one thing, right? Maybe three things. Has a desire, but just doesn't know where to start. What would you tell that woman, that mother? She's in education, she, just is wanting to do something different with her life, and knows that there's something, that this is not it. Feeling a bit stuck. Yeah. And she has babies and she wants better for them. What are three things you would tell her to do?
First, I would say honor your truth. If you are feeling these feelings, if they're coming up, let them. Because as women, the first thing, sometimes we don't want to sit with the discomfort. We want to suppress and we want to pretend that everything is okay. But this journey is gosh, it's more an internal journey before it becomes an external one, right? Before we get to that point where you have booked a date and you've done the discovery trip, or you've picked your location, before all those things that we can talk about, it's right here, right, where you're just like, you need to honor this truth that is coming up for you. I can't tell you how many times I'm in conversations with women from just various backgrounds, be it professionally or culturally, where they are yearning, and there's a question and there's a longing for a shift, for something more. And then they try to talk themselves out of it. And I see it all the time. And so that's the first thing I'm going to say is honor your truth. Don't talk yourself out of this thing. It's coming up for a reason, and it's coming up now for a reason, because you're supposed to do something about it now. It didn't come up 5 years ago. That's okay. It wasn't time. It's coming up today because it's time. So you need to honor this truth right now. Let those feelings rise. Let that discomfort sit in that discomfort. And then the next thing I would say is, write the vision, write it down. Okay. What are you looking for? What are you hoping for? What needs to change, right? What are you trying to say no to so that your yeses are possible? So number 2 would be write it down, make it plain, because the thoughts start floating around in our heads, and then it could just stay there. But then the first action is putting pen to paper. Yes, I said pen and I said paper. I know we type everything now, and that's fine. I do that too. But there is something about that kinetic energy, like that movement, and you putting down those words. You're beginning to create what you want. So that would be the next thing that I would say. Write the vision, make it plain. All right. And then it will start leading you to that first step, right? And then your first step will arise. For some people, that first step is, the YouTube research space. That first step is, countries that you've been curious about, that you've longed for, that have been on your radar, but you didn't, you just kind of push it aside. What I would say is, take that first step, because the third thing is there needs to be an action, right? To the thought, to the written vision, there needs to be that first step, because the first step is what's going to lead to the step that, I'm on, and the step that Ashley is in now, and the step that thousands of women are in that space of either transitioning or have already transitioned to the continent. You have to take that first step. It can be very overwhelming to think about the process. I agree. But I would say just think about, the last thing that overwhelmed you that you overcame. And once you start following that thought pattern, which is what I do when I'm overwhelmed with this process, I think about the other times in my life when I thought, man, this is going to be a challenge. I don't know. I don't know if I can do this. And I did it anyway. So yes, you're going to feel fear. That's normal. But anything worth doing, there's got to be some level of fear. All right. That's how you know you're on the right track. It's not supposed to just be like, oh, that was easy. I just uprooted my life. No, it doesn't work that way. So feel the fear. That's normal. And then take action anyway.
Yes, I am receiving all of that. I just received that too. I was looking over here in the corner because I myself, this is a mini version of what I did when I first moved to Tanzania. But I write these things, like I make these little, kind of roadmaps of the things that I want to do, little check boxes of, what I want to accomplish. And now being here in this, new country, new city, I did something a bit bigger. It was probably like 2 out of screen. Yeah, and still having fear, but doing it anyway. Like doing it anyway. So thank you for that. I'm sure somebody is going to feel that. And you're going to impact somebody with that. I do want to ask you, in all of that, in your in valuing community, you were very intentional in this journey of seeking community. And I wanted to ask you, since we're new in with the Africa Investors Academy, you are essentially a founding member. You will have, I'm getting things made for our founding
Good,
members.
because am I going to have some gear?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, some gear. There's gonna be an inscription somewhere.
Yes.
You get a space, and potentially even like a university space. I'm
Yes.
excited. Stuff happening. But what has your experience been like so far in the academy?
It's so interesting because when you think about things, or when I think about things, and it can be for anybody. I think the first step is, imagining and visualizing what you want. So before the academy, I got that note or that message, that announcement from you. I was envisioning, gosh, I need to be part of some, like professional, but like, accountable, but still a bit personal group where it's intentional, it's women, or it's people that are interested in doing life in the continent, so that I'm also going to be held accountable for my dreams. I know there's some like background noise going on, but so excuse that. So I'm also going to be accountable for my dreams and all of that. So before, I even heard you say that this was coming, I had kind of visualized this kind of opportunity to be a part of. And so then when, you popped in one day and was like, boom, this is what's coming. I said, oh, okay. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So boom. I said, okay, that was kind of fast. All right. And I've noticed that has been the thing. There are things that if I think about it, and like, I want this, I need this to happen. And then boom, the opportunity will present itself. And I started crunching the numbers, and it just matched exactly what I had budgeted for these types of opportunities. And so it was the African Investors Group, and there was like one more thing, and it was to the dollar the amount that I had. Yeah, you didn't know that. Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is the one, and this other thing is the one, because that boom, be together. That's the budget. So, so I automatically already knew I was supposed to be a part of this, and then now being a part of it, it's exceeded my expectations, because now we're in a space where it's sacred, but it's also instructional, but it's also collaborative, and it's also engaging. And it's also, an opportunity for learning and growth. So it's checking off all of these boxes that, I knew I needed, but wasn't quite sure of how that was going to appear. So the experience has been wonderful, because it's, I'm like, oh, this is happening, like you'll pop in and say, okay, this is the agenda for this quarter. This person's coming in to talk to us about investing in real estate. And I'm like, oh my God. And then this person's going to come do this. And I'm like, what? So I was just like, every time I'm seeing something pop up, I was like, wow, it only just confirms, the process of getting to that point. And I know, as with everything else, that's what will happen. But again, it started up here of saying, I think I need this thing. Right. And then when the opportunity presents itself, I can recognize the opportunity and just be affirmed in the experience. So it's been wonderful to be able to engage offline, and Ashley in Africa is who she is and more, offline. So what y'all are seeing is it's so much more behind the scenes. So It's really been an honor to experience that, and that's why I said what I said in the beginning,
Mhm.
because of these experiences that I've had with Ashley through, her being intentional about her calling and this purpose in her life. It's created space for other women to step into their own, and so. I will try not to cry. So thank you. Thank you for honoring that, because it's made a difference, and it's already made a difference in my life, and I'm still here. So,
Oh my goodness. That is so beautiful. I'm honored. I'm humbled. I'm full after you shared that. That is just, look at us having a moment. I don't think the people definitely don't get to see this side, but
no, no.
yeah, of me. And I mean, this is me too. It's just YouTube is just like this little microcosm of who we are, where we're trying to share value, right, without compromising certain parts of ourselves that we're just wanting to share. And I know you also recently started your YouTube channel.
I'm on these YouTube streets because of Ashley in Africa. Yeah. So.
So tell us about your YouTube channel, what you'll be talking about there.
Sure. I recently started my channel. It's basically my name, Marissa Senya, and I focus on my primarily my business, college admissions planning and coaching, and basically working as a student success coach. I share all the details, the insights on how to navigate this process, especially for students and families that are interested in pursuing an education in the U.S. Because there's the value of the degree, and you can do as you wish anywhere in the world. And so I do work with students that are based in other parts of the world, different time zones. It's virtual, and so there's the workshop components where it's small groups, and then there's the one-to-one component. And I enjoy both. Because to me, it's not necessarily about getting into a school and you check off the box. Yes, that's great. I help students do that. But what is even more satisfying for me is the journey of seeing the student step into who they are, because they have to go on an identity journey. There are a lot of questions that are asked of them, that they have to reflect on, write about, prepare for interviews, and they have to think about their values, who they are, and who they want to be, and the type of spaces that would cultivate a growth and prepare them for a future as global citizens and globally minded individuals. So that has been really one of the things I enjoy the most, is just watching that transformation from who the student was when we started working together, and then who they become, at that mark where they've been accepted and they've received that. They always come back to me and they say, you know what, man, I really enjoyed that process. I thought it was going to be this, I thought it was going to be that, but it was so much fun, and I enjoyed who I became, or who I'm becoming.
Yeah, I think it also, what you do that you maybe don't know that you do, is you're preparing them for that kind of emotional, mental, physical transition from, childhood to young adulthood, and how they have to, how they're navigating that through this like college, university application process. But it helps them to start to begin to critically think about the next steps in their journey versus just simply taking this test, making this application. And so it's a big point of inflection and success that you're preparing them for, outside of just that, like, that application. So I love that you said that, and you talked about the journey, because I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, if I would have had that, I know there's probably a whole bunch of other things that you just talk about and preparing for leaving the home, especially for international students to go into a university. And I don't know, right? One of the things that I learned wanting to study abroad, it's hard to get into international schools, even as an American student. So for people that have an interest in, maybe their kids are older, maybe their kids want to move abroad and they're in university and they don't know anybody, how they could get set up. Is that something that you could support with them? You could support them with as well, for people that maybe have an
Absolutely,
interest
absolutely.
in international university outside of the US?
Some of my international students, say they were from, an Asian country in particular. Their parents were not able to prepare them to go to school in the US, even if they were based in the US, because they are the child that is doing this. So they couldn't turn to their parents to ask any feedback about, well, what did you do? What did you do? So absolutely, that piece of, this is what it takes. Right now, my focus is on universities in the US, but even when you're here, there are opportunities to study in other countries, and there is a process for that. And a lot of times, students don't always feel that like they can get all of that support directly from the university. I know when I had to study abroad, I had to do it on my own. So, and I ended up with a program with another university, but it was like supported in Canada. So I had to navigate that. I don't know the Canadian system. I've grown up in the U.S. And to send me to the country because we just didn't offer that country at that time. We didn't offer opportunities in that country. So, but I wanted to go to that country, so I had to go through a Canadian system with another university. So my school really didn't help me with that.
Yeah. So it's a process. It's a process. But I'm gonna see, because I started talking about how I'm learning. My oldest, she's, not yet. Well, South Africa is a bit different. I get a bit confused, but I'm encouraging her to get into South African school, and it seems like it's really hard. So maybe by then, because she's 11, so we have some
Yes,
time.
you have time. Now you sound like my parents.
Yeah, I know.
Like, for me to work with you.
Listen, the testing is rigorous already, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And 100% graduation rate, 100% placement rate from a South Africa school, and to get into the South African schools, which are some of the best in the world. So yes, 15, like what's the age? What's the age we call you, Marissa?
Yeah, 15's not bad. It's not bad. I would say, second year in secondary school, that's not bad. For Americans, sophomores in high school, that's fine. We can talk about it. Just don't reach out if they're in middle school. Like, no, I can't. I mean, if you're 10, 11, no, it's too soon. But I understand different programs have different strategies. For me, you're going to evolve so much. Let's work with you right, in that teen sweet spot, and then take the evolution from there.
Okay, got it. So how can people find you on YouTube? How can they work with you? How can they contact you?
Sure. I know you're going to leave my contact information below, but you can follow my YouTube channel, Marissa Senya, to keep up with all the things, all college admissions. You can also join my email list, which I will also include, have Ashley share. And then you can also email me and just say hi, and just if you want to pick my brain or ask about my journey or something non-related to what I do or something you heard in this conversation, I'm also available for those conversations. And if you just want to follow and just keep up with my personal life, you can also follow me on Instagram at Classic African with a K on Instagram. So yeah.
Yes, follow her, email her, DM her, sign up for the email list, subscribe, put the notifications on. Yes. So we cannot wait to do a follow-up when you're in South Africa, when you and your daughter have made it into South Africa. We'll do like a 30-day check-in because
Wow.
Hopefully your 30 days is a little less hectic than mine, but
Okay.
we're going to affirm that it will be.
Yes.
That it will be. I'm sure it will be everything your heart desires and more. You will feel the sense of release, the sense of peace, the sense of home, safety, security. We are affirming that, and it is done.
I receive it. I receive it.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for watching. If you've made it to the end, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you have an interest in working with Marissa, please be sure to look. I'll put all of her information in the link below. Do all of the things. Tell her I sent you. And we will see you in the next video. Until next time.